Councilor, and I am the Chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Education. Today is September 25th, 2025, and the time is 2:09 p.m. This hearing is being recorded. It is also being live-streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcasted on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and Files Channel 964. Written comments may be sent to the committee email at ccc.education@boston.gov and will be made part of the record and available to all councilors. Public testimony will be taken in at the end of this hearing. Individuals will be called on in the order in which they signed up and will have 2 minutes to testify. If you are interested in testifying in person, please add your name to the sign-up sheet near the entrance of the chamber. If you are looking to testify virtually, please email our Central Staff Liaison, Megan, at megan.carudo@boston.gov for the link, and your name will be added to the list. Today's hearing is on docket number 0318, Order for a Hearing to discuss financial literacy programs in Boston Public Schools. This matter was sponsored by Councilors Ed Flynn, Councilor Aaron Murphy, and Councilor Julia Mejia, and was referred to the committee on January 29, 2025. Today, I am joined by my colleagues in order of arrival: Councilor Murphy, Councilor Flynn, Councilor Pepin, Councilor Braden, and Councilor Worrell. Before I introduce our panel with us here today, I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues for some brief opening remarks. I'm starting with the lead sponsors, and then we'll go in order of arrival. So, Councilor Flynn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for chairing this important meeting. Thank you to Councilor Murphy and Councilor Mejia for sponsoring this with me. I also want to recognize Councilor Pepin. You sponsored this also last year and also had an excellent hearing, so I want to say thank you to Councilor Pepin for the work he's done on financial literacy. Financial literacy is an important skill, critical skill that helps us manage day-to-day finances, learning how to budget and reach financial goals. Basic financial concepts at a young age can help prepare our students as they transition into adulthood and equip them with the knowledge to make better personal financial decisions. In 2015, my state treasurer, Deb Goldberg, established the Office of Economic Empowerment and created the Massachusetts Financial Literacy Task Force to study the access to financial education programs for high school kids, college kids, students, I should say. So I want to acknowledge the state treasurer. I want to acknowledge the important work Boston Public School teachers do as well. I also want to acknowledge the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, Jim Rooney, who provided testimony, but I also know that this is an important issue for the Chamber of Commerce, financial literacy, especially educating our young students. That's an important goal of the Chamber, but also of all of us. And just quickly, I was served 24 years in the Navy, and one of the duties I had was teaching young people almost life skills at times. And one of the subjects I taught was life skills and financial literacy. And oftentimes, an 18-year-old kid, once they got their first paycheck, they would buy an automobile at a high interest rate, 23%, 25%. They had a beautiful car, but they had a huge monthly payment that they had to come up with, but they didn't understand financial literacy as a youth, as a child, or as a student. That's why what you're doing here is so important, the BPS team, but also the teachers in Boston Public Schools. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Councilor Murphy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all for being here. I'd say to begin, but we're continuing, right? We're continuing this important conversation about financial literacy for our students here, for all of our kids here in Boston. We know that financial literacy is not just about numbers on a page. It's not just a math class. It's about giving our young people the tools to make smart, confident decisions that will shape their futures Whether it's managing a first paycheck, opening a bank account, applying for student loans, or understanding credit, these are real life skills every student deserves to graduate with. Too many of our young people leave high school without this foundation. A national survey by Experian found that 3 in 5 Americans admitting to making costly mistakes because they weren't financially prepared. And while other states are moving forward, Massachusetts still lags behind, leaving many of our students unprepared for adulthood. At the same time, we do have promising examples right here in Boston. Programs like City Kids, which we'll hear from Steve Whalen at the second panel, who's at East Boston High, and I believe some other schools across Boston, which partner with students to teach practical financial skills, are showing what works when we invest in our young people. I've also seen City Kids at the base and other places where, kids gather, if it's at school or just after-school programming. Find the kids where they are and teach them the skills they need is the mentality that we need to continue. So the question before us today is, how can we build on these successes and make financial literacy a consistent, accessible part of our high school experience? What we found, and why I filed this hearing again, is there are some great examples, but it's not required and it's not for every student across the city. So I'm looking forward to hearing from BPS, community partners, and advocates to understand what we're doing and to really approach this as financial education. To me, it's not a luxury. It shouldn't be an extra course or something special that your school may offer. Every child should be getting this education that they need to be successful adults. We all should have these skills, so we should be providing it for everyone, despite your zip code, what high school you're assigned to. So looking forward to hearing what we're doing and what we can do on the council to support the growth of that. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. I'd like to acknowledge that we've been also joined by Councilor Fitzgerald. Councilor Pepin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the sponsors of this very important topic. Thank you to the panelists that are here today. As a Boston Public School grad, I would have loved to have some financial literacy classes before graduating. I think that when you leave school and into the quote-unquote real world with any financial literacy understanding, it can really put you ahead of the curve in terms of when you're trying to purchase a home, paying rent, paying your bills, or just being well off economically. I was having a pretty good conversation with colleague Councilor Worrell about this topic, where it's also not just about savings account and 401ks. It's also about how to get into real estate, how to invest your money properly, how to be savvy with purchases, and are you going to lease a car or purchase the car? I think that if I'm speaking from a personal experience, if I would have had this information, I probably would have been in a better situation than I am today. And I want to make sure that our students, when they are taking classes in our high schools, they can leave with some knowledge that can help them in the future when they get into the work field. And we all know that students start working as early as high school, so they can start practicing some of those financial practices. So I'm excited to hear what's happening already, because I know there's some stuff that are happening in several schools. I want to know how we can expand it, and I want to know how we can make sure that all students are benefiting from these resources. So I'm excited for this hearing. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Councilor Pepin. Councilor Braden, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you. I'm here to listen and learn. I think financial literacy is a core life skill. We have, and it's one of those things, if you make mistakes, it can be devastating, but if you are well informed and have a good skill base in navigating financial issues, it can make all the difference. So I also think it's a great cross-curricular theme in terms of business skills and math skills and all of it together. We can and entrepreneurial skills. We can build a curriculum that's exciting for young people and not just about numbers. So I'm curious to learn more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Braden. Councilor Worrell, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the co-sponsors, and also thank you to Council Papen for bringing this forward last year and being able to continue to push this forward. This hearing is so important for me. I'm a accounting major, and one of the reasons why I went into accounting was to understand, how money works. Any business owner, even in life, you need to understand how money works, because every decision you make is compounded, right? It can be compounded negatively, or it can be compounded positively. So I think it's important to equip our students as early as possible with all useful information that they could use money in a positive way. I remember the first time I learned about financial literacy. I'm going to plug the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That was one of the books that I read that kind of opened my eyes to the way that money works, and wanted me to dive even deeper into just learning and understanding financial literacy. And even at my age, I feel like I am still learning. I feel like there are new terms that are coming out that weren't there. And when I was in high school, even college, you have cryptocurrency, you have NFTs. So like financial literacy is something that I think that is constantly evolving. So it's important that we are equipping our students with the basics, but also making sure that they're prepared to enter the real world with a vast understanding of all the tools and products that are out there. I also want to just give a shout out to City Kids and Steve Whalen for all the work that you do here in the city of Boston, and just looking forward to this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Worrell. Councilor Fitzgerald, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I always believe in strengthening your weaknesses, right? And so that's why when I financial literacy was not one of them, and I was able to go and get my MBA. The only thing I really learned is after I got it and I got the first bill, I said, well, this was not a good business decision to make this. But this is not a higher ed topic at the moment. It's so important. I think it also can be included in financial literacy is talking about taxes, talking about retirement, not only how to manage your money and making it work for you, which I think is a great point from Council Worrell, but there's so many other aspects of financial literacy that, as we know growing up today, you're learning on the fly as it happens, and it's so easy to fall behind when you don't have all that information up front. And so definitely think it's a critical part. It's one of those things that's been talked about for decades as well. Why don't we do this? And I'd love to see us try and really implement that more, so all of our youth can be ready and not fall into the same traps maybe many of us have fallen into during our time. But thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Fitzgerald. And I think the only thing that I will add is that, I first want to thank the sponsors for bringing this forward. I think in my first term, my number one priority has been our youth. And this past summer we had, 15 youth working in our office. And, one of the things that they requested was more financial literacy, that they weren't receiving it at BPS, or that they did take maybe one course, but it wasn't a graduation requirement, or it wasn't what they actually thought it was. And you definitely want to give two of our youth that we had this summer, Daniel and David, who co-founded what they call Fortune Avenue, and it's youth teaching other youth financial literacy and education. They taught our youth and myself and my team 3 different workshops throughout the summer, and they're looking to be able to expand, and we'd love to be able to see what type of partnerships these BPS kids can have with BPS to make sure that financial literacy is still is something that that they can learn from. And I think we all took science, we all took English, we all took history. The things that we're using every day, I think financial literacy is one of those things where, we as adults are navigating these different systems every single day. And I think it needs to be, a priority within, especially our high school students. Our students are starting to work at 14 years old. And I remember one of our 14-year-olds this past summer didn't know how to read a check, didn't know which number was the number that he took home, right? And even those little things, I think, are very important, especially amongst our Black and brown children here. So without further ado, I will now introduce our amazing panel here today. I really want to thank you all for being here and being present. With us here, we have from the administration, we have Ann Rogers-Clark, who is the Development Officer for Strategy, Partnerships, and Innovation with BPS. We have Marsha Ennis Mitchell, who is the Executive Director of Post-Secondary Initiatives with BPS. And we have Angela E. Hadley Mitchell, who is the Chief of Teaching and Learning with Boston Public Schools. So thank you for being here. I'll turn over the floor to you all for any opening remarks or presentation, and then we'll go to council questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you for having the BPS team here today. My name is Dr. Angela Hadley Mitchell. I proudly serve the Boston Public Schools as the Chief of Teaching and Learning. In my first role in Boston Public Schools, I served as a history and economics teacher, and I actually taught personal finance, so this has been something that I've done for the last 25 years, and it's really important to me as well. As you know, we have our DESE. I'll take a history of and have the teaching and learning aspect of it. We have the DESE Massachusetts History and Social Science Frameworks, where personal literacy actually lives as a course. And what that has is looks at having a high school elective, which is supposed to be a quarter hour that could be done in the high school level. And it looks to have students look at the topics of earning and spending income, saving money, using credit, making investments, and protecting and insuring assets. The frameworks is flexible in saying that it could be a course or it could be something that's interwoven into a business course, a college career readiness curriculum, a math course, or another history and social science course. We have that, and we also have economics, which is a whole different topic of itself. In my previous role here in BPS, I served as the Program Director for History and Social Science, and during that opportunity, I was able to obtain a grant from the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education during school year 21-22. And what we were able to do is work with teacher leaders across grades K to 12. So I look at it as a K to 12 initiative, even though our standards talk about it as a high school elective. And we looked at next-gen personal finance standards and tried to identify what are the pillars for financial literacy in the Boston Public Schools. So we looked at personal banking, credit, paying for college and trade school, behavioral economics, what influences you. As you know now with social media, you can click your phone to something and all of a sudden you see an ad and you should shop here. Learning how companies actually influence students to make purchases, and then also look at growing wealth, which I know some of the council members talked about. And from that came a partnership with the organization, Marsha will talk a little bit more, which is EverFi, which is a financial literacy platform that's available to all students in the Boston Public Schools, grades 4 to 12. And it lives on our Clever platform, and that's a platform where students engage in digital learning in math, science, history. And EverFi has been a partner with us for the last 5-6 years, and institutes different modules. They're online modules. They're not something that's a full course, but it's designed for students to engage in for a certain period of time. We have currently 30 schools who are utilizing the EverFi platform, and I'll just read off some of the courses that students can take. Some of our youngest learners in grades 4 to 6 can take a course called Understanding Money. There's Future Smart, Financial Literacy, Save Up, Saving Money for the Future, Entrepreneurial Expedition, Tax Simulation, I know someone talked about taxes, Marketplace Investing in Basics, Minding Your Money, Skills for Life, Modern Money, Safe Digital Banking, Financial Literacy for High School, Building Credit, and Financial Planning for Life. So those are some of the modules, and also, Financing Higher Education. Those are some of the modules that students can engage with, and I know March will talk a little bit more of how our students engage in those modules in their high school experience. As the representative for teaching and learning, I also want to talk about our youngest learners as well, because I think it's something that we can engage students in at a younger age. Our early childhood curriculum, which is called Focus, students actually engage in this conversation in K2. I brought some representations because I'm a teacher at heart. We have some books that, for instance, A Chair from My Mother is a story where the students get to understand what is a coin, how is it used for money, what is change, what's tip money, what's a bargain. and what's a bank? Like, what does a bank do? And in this story, Rosa has a mother, and she works for a diner, and the story is about how the mom has to save money. So it has students go, what does it mean to try to save? And it talks about having a jar and putting money in a jar. And some of the responses it asks students to talk about is when people earn money, we often have to use most of it right away to pay for things we need to live, like food and a place to stay. What might we be able to put money aside for to save? So once you have the money to eat and the money to live and pay these utilities, what else could you save for? And then it has students have a critical conversation about those who might not have to save. So actually having conversations of that might not be a reality for all of our students who are sitting in the classrooms. And another story we have here, and this is also in English and Spanish, as you can see here. Another story is Rainbow Weaver, which talks about a Mayan community, about a community where they have to weave cloth in order to sell, in order for the student to pay for her expenses for school and books. So I just say that to say that it's a conversation that we have early on, and books that are part of that curriculum that talk about savings, they put a sticker here for Boston Saves, which is the account that students get coming into kindergarten, where they get the $50 in order to invest that, and we have a whole department that does that in our early childhood space, but that students see that it's part of that program that we have right now, currently in BPS. Also, I want to talk about beyond the EverFi piece, we also have spaces where it's integrated into our high-quality instructional materials, whether in our math curriculum, and it's not standalone, but as the state's frameworks provide that it can be integrated. So in our grade 2, we have students who engage with conversations about money problems, spending money, identifying pennies, nickels, and dimes. In grades, even in the high school grades, we have conversations about compound interest, budgeting for school events, savings accounts and interest, maximizing your profits. Part of the work, I know you said, Councilmember Santana, about our high school students advocating for financial literacy programming. We have a program within our district called BPS Mentoring, and within that mentoring program, they partnered with BSAC, which is the Boston Student Advisory Council. 400 students actually took part in a financial literacy core component. They worked with an organization called Early Investors. It's a local nonprofit committed to empowering Black and brown youth by equipping them with foundational financial literacy knowledge. They had conversations about budgeting and money management, home ownership and credit readiness, investing, taxing, and smart financial decision-making. In addition to that, that group has partnerships with Chase Bank and Dorchester Bay Economic Development Corporation. So that's about reaching about 400 of our students who are part of that mentoring program or part of the BSAC collaborative. Just to talk about a little bit about our courses that are available in economics of finance. We have economics courses, we have introductory into business courses that are available in some dual enrollment spaces. We have financial literacy course and we have an entrepreneurial course. Something that I'll close with this, that I'm really excited about is the College Board is starting this year, is piloting a course called Advanced Placement Business Principles and Personal Finance. The Boston Public Schools will be piloting that course in 26-27. So that would be a high school course that students would be able to engage in, and that will start next school year. Thank you. And I will turn it over to Marcia.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Hedley Mitchell. Thank you, Councilor members, for allowing us to speak with you today. My name is Marcia Inez Mitchell, and I serve as the Executive Director of Post-Secondary Initiatives and Partnerships for the Boston Public Schools. My role sits in what we call our Office of College, Career, and Life Readiness in the district. And one of the priority focus areas for our office is creating a interactive K-12, really K-16 advising system. I'm not sure if you've heard of our state's MyCap process and framework. It stands for My Career and Academic Plan. It has 3 domains that we have to build out annual activities, workshops, experiences for our students. Those domains are personal social, career development, as well as college and post-secondary planning. The district decided that we were going to add a fourth domain, and that domain ended up being financial literacy because we saw that as a priority. And what MyCap is, every student in grades 6 through 12 are engaged in a structured scope and sequence of experiences across all those 4 domains. So sometimes it's like, 4 experiences per year or 6 experiences per year in the form of a workshop or a lesson that is taught within the academic day as part of the classroom model usually. And so our office facilitates every 9th through 12th grader being engaged in one financial literacy experience and workshop. And I want to be very explicit about it is a lesson, it's not a whole course. So it's like a one-time module that aligns with specific grade level goals and objectives. Schools implement this by selecting that activity through a partnership either with Citizens Bank or Rockland Trust. They either look at, the EverFi financial literacy platform as well as other resources and partners. We allow that choice making because many schools have different priorities for their students. So one school might prefer to bring in a bank to facilitate that experience alongside them. Another school might prefer something a little bit more self-directed or asynchronous at the student level. So schools select the activity per grade per year that they will uplift for the financial literacy domain as part of the MyCap. These lessons all have a pre-assessment or survey to help us to gauge a student's understanding of the concept, right, that's being taught as part of the financial literacy experience. There's also a post-assessment. That post-assessment is to see, did you learn something from that one experience? And we then document that the student actually completed it within our college and career planning platform, which is Navion. So we have some data on the number of students per grade, 9 through 12, that actually completed one financial literacy experience per year. In grades 9, just to give you a sense of some of the things we focus on per grade, students learn some foundational financial literacy concepts as well as vocabulary, inclusive but not limited to some banking basics, financial goals and plans, how to budget. They learn about the difference between a savings and a check-ins account, right? And you don't touch your savings unless you absolutely have to in an emergency. Speaking to what you uplifted, Councilor Worrell, that is the year we also expose them to compound interest, both the negative as well as the positive. How does it help you grow your money or how you can lose your money through that? Things to watch out for around bank fees. When you go and use your ATM, for example, your ATM card at an external bank, you're getting charged $3 or more at that bank, at your home bank. In grade 10, we continue with the basics, but then begin to incorporate aspects connected to college and career, right? So during that year is when we start helping them to understand the differences between money that you have to pay back, right, such as loans, and money that you don't have to pay back, such as grants and scholarships. That is the year we also begin to expose them through that course, through that one lesson, to different careers and earnings aligned to different careers and career clusters, so they can kind of make some choices for themselves. And then the importance of building your credit over time. In grade 11, the financial literacy concept does become a little bit more advanced, right? We start talking with our students about investing in financial assets as well as the different forms of taxes. grade 12, as students are preparing for their post-secondary lives, the focus is on financial literacy related to college affordability. So we talk to them about their different post-secondary options and the cost factors and financial expectations associated with all of those different options. We then engage them in some smart money habits such as budgeting again, financial planning, and money management. That is the year we go really deeply in helping them to understand the difference between the free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA, versus the MASFA, which is the Massachusetts application for student financial aid. And we go over eligibility criteria and support them with the application process, because we really want to make sure that they are accessing all of the state aid that's available to them. Now, during the pandemic is when we began to layer on the financial literacy component to our advising process and system. So in 2023 and 2024, I'll share some data with you. Only 9% of our ninth graders were being engaged in this one lesson. But this past year, that moved it was 5% of our ninth graders. That moved from 5% to 30% of our ninth graders. For the 10th graders, it moved from 7% in 23-24 to 49% in 24-25. And for 11th graders, 40% of our students were engaged. That increased to 50% in 24-25. And then for our 12th graders, it was 66% and then increased to 72%. Now, this coming year, the goal is 100% completion of that financial literacy experience across grades, and I'll tell you why. DESE, who kind of originated the MyCap framework, is requiring all districts to report on completion of these experiences. And so we are really pushing the needle and working and supporting schools and walking alongside them to ensure that they're engaging 100% of their students in all of the MyCap experiences across the domains, inclusive of financial literacy. So I look forward to hopefully coming back to a hearing next year and sharing some of those outcome data with you. I'll pass it to my colleague, Ann.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Dr. Ann Rogers-Clark. I serve as the Development Officer of Strategy Partnerships of Innovation for the Boston Public Schools, and in this role, I lead collaborations across philanthropy, higher education, and industry to drive equity, innovation, and real-world readiness for our students. Before joining Central Leadership, I was a teacher and head of school at Boston Arts Academy for many years and later served as an acting regional superintendent. I'm very proud to say this is my 28th year in the Boston Public Schools, and I have always had the same purpose, ensuring that Boston's young people are prepared not just to graduate, but to thrive. Today, I am here to share one example of that commitment, a growing partnership between the Boston Public Schools and the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce Foundation to bring financial literacy education to our students. So why financial literacy? I think we all are in agreement that it is a crucial skill for our students. In the 2023-2024 school year, the joint BPS Chamber Workforce Advisory Committee identified financial literacy as a critical area of focus as well. This was not an abstract conversation. Families, teachers, and employers alike all came together and recognized that our students are entering a world where financial decision-making is inseparable from opportunity. Without the skills to navigate credit, savings, or investment, as everyone has underscored today, too many young people risk being held back by preventable obstacles. The Joint BPS Chamber Advisory Committee convened a financial literacy working group back in 2023, made up of both financial professionals and BPS educators. That group was charged with two objectives. First, to develop a shared vision of the core financial knowledge, skills, and experiences we want our students to gain across the K-12 system. And second, to strengthen direct connections between BPS classrooms and Boston's financial services sector. Between July and October of 2024, the working group met and produced a set of recommendations for key content and skills. Our BPS curriculum staff then mapped those recommendations onto existing courses that my colleagues have just described, identifying where these financial concepts were already present and where they could be expanded by the addition of financial professionals. With the Chamber Foundation support, we launched a pilot program last school year in 3 high schools, Brighton, O'Brien, and Dearborn. In these schools, financial professionals partner with teachers to co-facilitate lessons on topics such as credit building and usage, basic banking, and an introduction to the stock market. The goal was not to replace classroom instruction, but to enrich it, bringing industry expertise directly to students in relevant real-world ways. This school year, we are building on that pilot. The Boston Chamber continues to connect volunteers to Brighton, O'Brien, and Dearborn, and we are expanding to additional schools beginning shortly, for example, with Binka and Boston Green Academy. The Chamber Foundation has committed to ensuring at least one volunteer-led experience per month in each participating school. To put that in numbers, one volunteer session per month translates into roughly 10 sessions per year, with about 15 students in each session. That means each participating school will reach at minimum 150 students annually. With 5 schools involved this school year, we anticipate reaching about 750 students, and our growth plan is ambitious: 10 schools and 1,500 students in school year 26-27, and 20 schools and 3,000 students by 27-28. This is not just a matter of adding schools, it can also mean deepening opportunities within schools, offering more sessions and integrating financial literacy across multiple grades and subjects. We know this work has to be measured, not just assumed. Together with the Boston Chamber Foundation, we are conducting both quantitative and qualitative assessments. These include post-event feedback surveys from volunteers, pre- and post-session surveys from students, and trend analysis to track whether participating students are more likely to pursue summer jobs, post-secondary education in business or finance, apprenticeships, or early entry into related fields. This feedback loop is essential. It ensures that we are not simply delivering one-off lessons, but rather building a coherent pathway where students see financial literacy as both a life skill and a gateway to opportunity. Beyond the volunteer partnerships, we are working, as my colleagues have outlined, to launch a new advanced placement course next school year, AP Business with Personal Finance. As has been said, this will give secondary school students not only rigorous preparation, but access to college credit in a field that is directly connected to economic empowerment. Chamber volunteers will support these classes next school year, ensuring they are rooted in both academic rigor and industry relevance. Finally, our next frontier is elementary education. As my colleague has outlined, we believe financial literacy can start and should start with our younger grades. We are beginning to convene elementary schools to identify ways financial literacy could be expanded with the participation of financial professionals. And we know the sooner that we start this work, the more we normalize financial conversations and build confidence in our students long before they face high-stakes financial decisions. In closing, this partnership between the Boston Public Schools and the Chamber of Commerce Foundation is about more than just learning how to balance a checkbook or understand a credit score. It's about equipping Boston's young people, Boston's future, with the skills, confidence, and networks to take control of their futures. It is about showing them that our city's business community is invested in them, not as future workers alone, but as citizens, leaders, and decision makers. On behalf of my colleagues at the Boston Public Schools, I want to thank the Boston Chamber, the Boston Chamber Foundation, especially my colleagues Mike Holland and Jessica Sannon for all of their work, and especially all of the financial professional volunteers who have stepped into classrooms to make this initiative possible. I also want to thank the council, especially Councilor Santana, for convening this hearing and for shining a light on financial literacy and the ways cross-sector partnerships can strengthen both our schools and our city. Thank you all very much, and we look forward to the rest of the hearing.
Thank you. Really appreciate the panel that's here with us today. I also just want to extend that thanks to the lead sponsors for convening us here today. We're going to move to counselor questions now, starting with the lead sponsors, and then we'll go to counselor questions in order of arrival. I also do believe we have a community panel with us today, so I'm going to keep questions to 5 or 6 minutes. I'm going to try to set up the beep here, but Councilor Flynn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the public school team that is here providing excellent information and support to our students. I also want to acknowledge the city real estate development and Stephen Whalen as well for the important work they are doing, financial literacy. I mentioned the Chamber of Commerce earlier and Jim Rooney. So I know we're making progress in educating young people in BPS, and DESE is kind of encouraging everyone to get financial literacy training. But are we able to have a mandatory program for every student in BPS so that they receive some type of financial literacy? And I know that the numbers are increasing greatly, but is there a way to have it mandated that we should be educating every student on financial literacy?
So I know currently the DESE has convened a high school graduation council, and in their discussions at the state, they're looking at how we have like seal of biliteracy, so students can qualify to become biliterate. They're looking at other seals, not exclusively seal for financial literacy, but also like a seal for civics. So there could be an endorsement of a student's graduation requirement that they receive a seal. In regards to graduation, we have what are our Mass Core graduation requirements, and in that right now that has been approved. Financial literacy is not one of the courses per se, but I do know that the state graduation council is moving to looking at adopting a seal process. I know that has been adopted in other cities like Chicago, where students have to have a requirement of financial literacy before they graduate.
Thank you. I think of high school kids as they're applying to college, but also filling out their application for financial aid. It's almost impossible to do it alone. And if your parent or your guardian may have limited financial literacy education as well, what support are we also providing a parent or a guardian that could, and I know school counselors and guidance counselors also help the students, but how do we help a parent or help a guardian so that their child can complete these forms? Because the forms are tough.
Absolutely. I always say that the post-secondary planning, application, transition process is a family process. Yeah. It's a family decision. This upcoming October is our College and Career Month initiative, and our citywide College and Career Fair is happening on Saturday, October 18th at the Reggie Lewis from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. On site there is one of several financial aid application support sessions we have, where families can sign up in advance to sit with a financial aid specialist or expert and really go through the micro steps of that application process, understand, the tuition equity law, begin the MASFA. Also, the FAFSA is opening on October 1, right? That's just one opportunity for families. Throughout the year, we do have some on-site sessions at Bowling where we, partner with our organizations like You Aspire or BU Path and other nonprofits to bring the support more out into the community spaces. And this, does not include all of the financial aid nights, the embedded supports that schools are doing outside of the academic day during the college affordability season. So there's multiple ways that we are engaging parents and working to build their awareness and supporting them and their young person in going through the micro steps of the application.
That's great to know. Thank you. My final question. So young students are working sometimes after school, but most of them are working during the summertime, the summer job. But what type of financial literacy do they need to know in terms of completing their taxes or opening up a banking account? Checking account, I should say, or a savings account. Is that part of the process as well, helping them navigate that process?
One of the amazing things about our partnerships with the Boston Private Industry Council, which is our city's workforce investment board, is that we have picked career specialists in the majority of our high schools. And as part of the summer jobs application initiative, there is a specialist that sits with the student and really helps them to understand the nuances of all of that. And that's really an extension of what they may have already learned within a lesson associated with their MyCap or through EverFi or some other mechanism, right? So this is a career specialist who will sit with them to help them to understand how to complete the banking information associated with their jobs and, the differences between local and federal taxes.
Thank you. My time is just about up. Thank you for taking my questions.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Councilor Murphy, you have the floor.
And thank you for all of your presentations. And you touched on, the partnerships and the initiatives and how we want to expand that. Is there a desire to get to a place where it is a requirement, right? That BPS isn't like waiting for the state or DESE to add it. You talked about the domains, and will it be, added as one of the, graduation requirements? When you're sitting around those tables, are these conversations coming up that we want to have this as a requirement, that not just, exposure, and that we know kids may have one exposure, may have 3 or 4, but that's like exposure to volleyball or exposure to swimming, right? That, such a life skill. I mean, you need financial literacy for quality of life, right? Going forward, just like you need food and water. So, like, are we at a place that I don't think we are, but how do we get to a place in BPS where we're advocating for it and we're supporting your advocacy and not waiting for the state, which we know lags behind often?
There have been conversations where the superintendent has made it clear this is a priority. I think, especially with Ann's work and working with the chamber, there have been discussions about how we can make this a required course and what would that take, the infrastructure that's necessary, where would it be, what grade level,
What would it look
the
like?
the time, that right now we have on instruction with our core content, where would that course lie?
You mentioned a few times it like falls under civics, but would it be economics, math?
So in the history and social science standards, personal finance falls under social sciences. There's this teeter between social science, as an economics major, teeter between, does your economics department fall in social sciences or does it fall in the business realm? Right now with the standards, it falls under social sciences. But there have been discussions about what would that look like. Would it be a quarter, a semester? Would it be modules that students do? But that has definitely been something that we've talked about, definitely with Ann as well, of like what's the infrastructure in order for that to happen throughout all of our high schools, no matter if, in our alt ed spaces, what would that look like for all our students?
Yes, that's my next question, like who are the kids being exposed? And it's great to see numbers are going up from, single digit or 20% to 45, close to half, but what high schools or middle schools are offering it? Like who are those students? Because we do know that it's most critical for students whose families, may not have the skills at home to teach their kids at home, that we're offering it to all of our students, not just some of the, overperforming high schools, because we know there's a drastic difference from the experience kids get depending on which high school they're placed at.
As it pertains to MyCap, MyCap is operational in all of our high schools and diploma granting programs. Now, different schools are in different places with operationalizing all of the experiences, right? So some schools may be able to operationalize the personal social or the career development experiences, but may not get to the financial literacy experience. So to answer your question, it's available across all of our high schools, but it's not being operationalized, and that's where we're working to get to.
So every high school kid could take advantage of a financial literacy opportunity? And what would that look like? Is it the program that I know we'll hear more about, say, through City Kids, that's offered at East Boston High? Is that type of program offered for every student in BPS?
Well, every student has access to the financial literacy experience in MyCap, whether that's activated through a partnership or through Everfi.
And
now,
could you explain for the public listening, what that means as if you have?
So it's part of their scope and sequence that is made available, but the school has to activate the experience. And so there are some schools that may not be in a position to activate that experience, and that's what we're working on.
Could you, and I understand what it is as a former BPS teacher, a mom of a BPS kid, what MyCap is, but could you explain what that means then for a student who has this opportunity through MyCap? What does that look like?
Yeah, so MyCap is a self-directed multi-year college and career planning, advising process. And so MyCap is delivered at the classroom level, and the teacher, in partnership with maybe a counselor, community-based organization, go into the classroom structure and deliver a lesson plan, a workshop, an experience. Even though the MyCap activity is a part of the student's scope and sequence, if the school is not able to activate it, the student is not able to engage in it.
So which schools are activating this opportunity for our kids?
I can get you the data on the specific schools. I don't have to break down on which schools.
We would need that, because this conversation is about who is being offered that. The opportunity may kind of be there, but many schools are not at a place where they're able to even consider financial literacy as one of the opportunities. Isn't that true?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Is it true that many students in BPS are in our high school classrooms, our middle school classrooms? I don't, you shared one of my favorite kindergarten books, as you're never too old or young to start this financial literacy. But many of our students in BPS are in schools who are not being offered opportunities for financial literacy.
So I would say that the opportunity is there. I can speak for Everfi in particular, and I have the schools. I have to look it up on my computer. The schools are provided the opportunity. I think it happens in different methodologies throughout the school. So we have some schools that actually teach a personal finance course. We have some schools who do a personal finance day. We have some schools that are It's about to be winter break. Students are, it's a little difficult time. Hey, how about we do some modules? MCAS is over today. Let's do some modules. So it's the engagement is very different throughout.
I just wouldn't want to check off a box and say that students at a certain school have been given financial literacy because there was a financial literacy day. We have chronic absenteeism. You could be a student who was absent that day, which means you never got any exposure.
Well, I know the school that does the day also does the Everfi. So it's actually a day where they have students who come and actually share what their experiences have been, and they have partners in the community that come and talk about job readiness and things like that. It's done in collaboration with the other pieces that are happening. But I'm saying that it happens through different methodologies throughout the school. But we have data on the Everfi usage and what schools are utilizing it and which actual modules they've completed. It gives us data on what the completion is, the amount of time you spent on the module, so we can provide that to you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor Papen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to the panelists for your presentation and for the amazing work that you've done so far. I was very, very glad to hear that the percentage of the freshmen getting any financial literacy class went from, you said 9% to almost 30% or more?
5 to 30.
That's great. Now that's a huge jump. And it just shows the progress that we've already done. And I think you're right that we need to have a follow-up hearing even after this one to hear the results of what comes out of the DESI requirements or what you're trying to work on, right?
Yes.
It's so important to the continued success of this program. My question to you all is, I always have concerns when, I don't have concerns with the leadership of the schools, but when we allow the schools to choose what they're going to do with the programs, they can choose a different bank, they can choose a different financial advisor. How do we ensure that, I don't know, let's say school A and school B, they get to choose their own thing, that they both have the same type of quality of education to their students so that the students at school A are not missing out on what the students are learning at school B. How do you monitor that?
Yeah, so with the MyCap scope and sequence, we have clearly articulated objectives, so learning objectives that every grade level should have. And the school, in partnership with their financial literacy provider, or whether that's Everfi, has to align that experience or lesson to those learning objectives and standards. And so that's kind of like the common thread across the board that ensures that their experience is resulting in our shared desire for what we hope for them to learn that particular year.
Okay. And do you have a list of programs that the schools could choose from? Is that something that you all provide?
Yes, I can definitely send, and it's on our public My Career and Academic Planning page, if you look at the MyCap scope and sequence, but we will work to get that over to you for sure.
Okay. That's good. I was able to look that up really quickly.
Yeah, you see it there?
Yeah, that's very helpful. And then when it comes to the, you said the objectives, right? Is that also something that's public? Like this is me just being curious. Like, what are the students learning in freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year? I would love to see that, if that's possible.
Absolutely. On the scope and sequence, the objectives are clearly articulated across the domains. I will make sure you get the exact link to that resource that I'm referencing, and it's open to the public.
Okay, that's great. And I know that our percentages continue to increase, and I forget which counselor was the one that alluded to this, but I think it was Councilor Murphy. Do you ever think that we're gonna get to a point where it's almost every senior is gonna be able, or every high schooler is gonna get some type of financial literacy class?
I do. And the reason being is because a lot of our schools are, and I'm really excited about the fact that I'm seeing a shift in mindset of how they are sharing in the responsibility of the student's career and academic planning that is not just a responsibility of the school counselor, is one that's shared with core content teachers, pathway coordinators, our partners and our administrators, and our leaders are setting the condition for that. So I am definitely hopeful that this year we will start to see like percentages in the 90s of completion for the financial literacy module.
Wow. So thank you for that. And I think that this is what progress looks like. I think that when we try initiatives like this and we start to see these numbers actually come into fruition, the increased percentages and students receiving these curriculums, I think that we're finally heading in the right direction. So I just wanted to thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
I'm going to dive into the My Career and Academic Plan website and do some
Please
digging.
do.
But
And check out the videos, like the
Yeah.
students bring to life the experience.
okay, that's great. No, I was over at New Mission High School this morning doing college essay tutoring and just being able to learn from them what they were learning. It's always better to learn from the students than from the teachers and the advisors, et cetera. So
Absolutely.
that was great. I want to thank you. I'm going to excuse myself. I'm actually going to my daughter's open house today. So going to another school where I feel like I'm always out of school. But thank you so much for the work you're doing, Councilor Santana. Thank you for chairing this hearing.
Thank you, Councilor Pepin. I also failed to acknowledge earlier that we've been joined by City Council President Ruthie Louis Jen. Next up, we have Councilor Worrell. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. Also just want to give a shout out to Nislo, all the work that you do with the Reality Fair. I had the opportunity of visiting the Burke, and I saw so many of our young people so engaged, and then just being so shocked that $70,000 or $60,000 doesn't really go that far. So it is definitely a great experience, a great learning experience for our young people to not only understand how to budget, but to, try to achieve to go and get those high-paying jobs and do their best in school. Also, shout out to Royce, who does a lot of this work as well, Royce Vail, and then also shout out to Citizens Bank, who was able to go with us, I think it was to the Burke again, to help our seniors enroll into savings accounts, and then also give basics of the importance of savings and why to establish a savings account at their local bank. And then also a big shout out to BECMA, Eastern Bank, and Youth Build, and Rick at the Mattapan Teen Center, my office, and shout out to Abdullah Beckett for this. We was able to put together a power pitch competition. A lot of our young people are so interested in entrepreneurship, so this gave them the opportunity to create a business plan and then pitch that business plan to their friends, family, and community members and a panel of judges, and then they were awarded. I think we split it up evenly, that most people were able to be first place winners. My question is around entrepreneurship. I know maybe it is around financial literacy, maybe it isn't, but so many of our young people, aspire or want to be entrepreneurs. Is that woven into any of our financial literacy curriculum?
Sorry, I'm just looking at my,
Okay.
my data. We currently have 514 students who are engaged in an entrepreneurship course in the district. That could be an online course or something that they're doing as their pathway programming at a school. There are Venture, which is an entrepreneurship expedition in Everfi, which has students look at a food truck. And they have to be able to understand the overhead in regards to the food truck and how to budget for, all the things that is encompassing of developing something in having your own business and food and utilities and all that is required of that. So there are opportunities for students to engage with it. It's not a requirement, but there are opportunities through either coursework or through the Everfi modules to have the entrepreneurial experience.
Awesome. And it sounds like a lot of our students, or all of them, have a career specialist. I know a lot of our BPS students have summer jobs. When they meet with the career specialist, is what are the tasks? Like, what are the career specialists encouraging our students to do? Are they encouraging them to open up a bank account? Are they encouraging them to start maybe it might be too early, but I don't think it's ever too early, to start a 401k or an investment plan? Because I think about, I don't know if everyone knows the story of Allen Iverson. He spent so much money, but in his clause with Reebok, they put together a little trust fund that he couldn't spend until he was 55 years old. So after his long career, and he was quote unquote broke, he had I think $30 million there for him. And sometimes, it's easy to say don't touch your savings, but it's harder to touch your 401k, right? So what are the tasks that our career specialists are kind of pushing, our students to do?
So the primary task that career specialists are engaging students in is just the multiple steps in the job application process.
Okay.
And they are embedded as co-facilitators of anything associated with our career development domain within the MyCap. So a lot of what you're talking about is, around understanding around 401ks and opening up a bank account versus going to the check cashing station, they help students in sense making around the benefits or the pros of opening up a bank account and the specifics around that, and also trying to get a sense of what is the family situation that can support the student in that process. Again, that's a family journey as well, similar to the college application process.
Right. Yeah, no, I get it. And any data around, do we have any data around how many of our students who have summer jobs have a bank account, or?
I don't think that's data we actually collect, but what we can do is circle back with the Boston Private Industry Council and see if there are other data that can kind of indicate that activity or that outcome.
All right. Yes. Well, again, thank you for all your work. I wrote down the book. Is it A Chair for My Mother? And what was the other two books?
Yes, Rainbow Weaver.
Rainbow.
And A Chair for My Mother.
Rainbow Weaver.
And that's just two of them. There's other stories where they interweave the financial literacy conversations with K2 and I believe second grade.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilor Worrell. I want to acknowledge that we've been joined by Councilor Mejia, who is also a lead sponsor in this docket. Next up, we have Councilor Fitzgerald. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of quick questions. First of all, thank you guys for being here, obviously. One of my questions was how do we make it part of the regular curriculum? I think that's been asked several times now, and understanding that working on it, we're having those conversations, and at what age, so it's great to hear those answers. What do we think, and this, I don't know if this might be for the second panel or not, but what are banks' roles in the education today of financial literacy? And second to that, is there anything that is duplicative in nature in terms of what we're trying to do that if you all had, that could wave a wand, that might streamline anything of saying, oh, the banks are doing this and that's great, and BPS is doing this and that's great, and there's another agency here doing that and that's great, but how is it all coordinated in one? I don't know if that's too complicated to answer at the moment, but what would that look like, and what are we doing today, and what would it look like to make it all streamlined and coordinated?
The superintendent often says it takes a village, but it takes a focused and aligned village. And part of what our partnership with the Boston Chamber Foundation is about is providing that focus and that alignment. Boston is fortunate to have a number of fantastic partners, some of whom we've mentioned, and I understand that some of whom will be represented in the second panel. We welcome all of their involvement, and the partnership between the BPS and the Chamber is a way of making sure that those that wish to support the schools have an easy entry into the schools, have some support with knowing what to expect, personal connection with the teacher. Teacher has clear understanding of what to expect from the partner, and also, and frankly, a support with a topic that they may not feel as comfortable teaching without the support from a partner. And so what I would say is that many of our major bank institutions have been part of that partnership. And as my colleagues have referenced, have also done a number of initiatives on their own. So our goal is to, again, provide that focus and that alignment so anyone in the community who would like to be part of supporting students' financial literacy have an easy on-ramp. And the way to do that is to email me at aclark, no numbers, aclark, A-C-L-A-R-K, at bostonpublicschools.org.
Great, thank you so much. And then in continuing the financial literacy education, even past high school, are we looking at, or is there any connection to say, not focus so much on the education part of it, because I think that would continue on if you go on to higher ed and choosing your major and things like that. But out of high school, is there connections to any other companies or services? If people are doing their financial literacy or have an entrepreneurial idea, that then can connect them on and apply that financial literacy that they learned, right? Because continuing education, it will not, higher ed will not happen for everybody in this city. But how do we connect them if they do gravitate towards it or get an understanding of it and want to do more? How can we connect them to their services going, how to start their own small business or something like that, and the needs for that?
I don't know that we have an answer for that. I'm writing it down as an interesting idea that we could, and the point of having these standing relationships with very important institutions in the city, like the chamber, is that we can raise these kinds of questions and pilot potential models. So thank you for the idea.
Nope. If anything that comes out of this, the best part of these hearings is new ideas that can come out and potentially be put into action. And I think if that's all we get out of it, then we've done a small step of our job. So thank you all for being here. That would end my questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councilor Fitzgerald. Council President Eugene, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the sponsors for this hearing. I think it's really important to develop. During my first job here as a kid in the city of Boston, I remember that it was culturally like something that we did when we got our checks. We went to the check cashers. Mm-hmm. Like that was just like part of the culture of what we did, because that's how you could get your money, and that's how you could get your money fast. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if there is a way to embed financial literacy into our youth jobs, our summer youth jobs program, so that or does it already exist, so that when our young kids get a job with the city of Boston through the Success Link, that there's a requirement that they sit down and take a financial literacy class, anything like, how to open up a bank, right? Because how to have a savings account. Like, even if I had known at the age of 14 the trade-off between a check cashing place that is not where you should go, because they take like a substantial cut of your check, and take your check, deposit it, wait the amount of time necessary for you to be able to get it, and how I just think that would be really beneficial to our young kids. So do we do any of that? Does anyone know?
That is something we can definitely follow up on with the Future Boss ecosystem. At bare minimum, through the work that we do with the Boston Private Industry Council around job readiness, there are embedded conversations in our advising structure around the benefits of opening a bank account versus accessing these some of them are predatory check cashing businesses, which I was a victim.
They're all predatory.
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, but I was a victim to them as well,
right?
Just not knowing, and
when you look, Black and brown communities, they are a dime a dozen on a corner, right? Checks cashed, and so it's like
But what you're talking about is something more systemic, where we can document that the student actually got this in a more uniformed way, and something that maybe can be either activated on the front end or as they're transitioning into their employment, maybe a way, something that employers can partner with us to activate on their end as well. But that's a really great system idea.
And I wonder if it's something that,
I was just saying, I'm writing it down, that we do have regular planning meetings with Future Boss team, and I think we've talked about credentialing certain skills, so the conversation is definitely underway, but I can convey your interest in that.
And I know the chair has led a lot in terms of like our youth jobs and our summer jobs program for our young people. So, I mean, I just think that in terms of taking it back, the employer itself, especially if it's like a bank or State Street, of course they can do it. But for us to own it, I think it would be, because they all come through us.
Right.
And if we could just own it as like, okay, here is the if you're a Future Boss kid, here's the orientation program of being part of Success Link. And one of those is a financial component. What does it take to open a bank account? Why, like the difference between a bank account and a check cashless place, why you want to avoid, right? And we have a consumer financial department, consumer finance department here in the city of Boston. I think that the basics, not even the things that I honestly would hope that our kids, that we need to have conversations with them about, opening an IRA and a Roth IRA. I think that before we even start those, like the basics of like, do you have a bank account open to deposit your check in when you get paid? I think that's important, and that's from personal experience.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. I don't have any further questions. I want to thank you for all the work that you're doing. Thank my colleagues for their advocacy. I would like to see this as, I can't remember ever taking a financial literacy course. I went to Boston Land School. So from my experience, like it wasn't dependent on the type of school, the quality of school you went to. We had no exposure to it. And so I'm hoping that it's something that becomes standard at all of our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. I know that even you talked about summer jobs. It's not a requirement. They do talk about it during orientation, but it's not something that we're setting up our students to actually have access to those things. It's more mentioned and encouraged. But that's something that we can definitely bring up to Pedro and his team as well. Great. Next up, we have Councilor Mejia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all for being here. So I was trying to look smart, but I am smart. I don't need to try to look, so forget that. So I'm excited to have this conversation. I was a PIC student. I had 3 jobs when I was in high school, and I had to learn how to balance a budget because it was me and my mom, and we had to figure out how we were going to make ends meet. And I still have my journal from when I owed my cousin $20 and I had to pay this. And so instinctually, I had to learn those skills because it was a part of my survival, right? And no one was telling me how to balance a budget. I just had to do it. And so I think that when you understand your relationship with money, then you have a better relationship with how you manage your money. And I think that oftentimes it's seen as a privilege. And so folks who grow up with money know how to balance their budget because it's passed on from generation to generation, right? So this is also a cultural thing, not just students, but also the whole family. Having worked with women who are transitioning out of welfare, they also need financial literacy. And while this is about young people, I think that we also have an opportunity to look at the whole family because we want to have healthy financial literacy for the whole entire unit. So I just want to encourage you all that whatever you're teaching the young people, it gets to the hands of the parents who are also helping to support young people in their process. So I would like to say, just to kind of follow up on what one of my colleagues talked about, there are some programs, ABCD, is one of the work sites for Summer Works. And in 2010, we worked, this was before I was city councilor, worked with young people, and they developed a whole entire documentary as a work site. But there was an entire segment about what you do with your paycheck. And so young people, through that particular site, their main function was making sure that young people were financially literate, if you will. And so there are some models already that exist that I think tapping into and then having them coordinate and collaborate with the city could be something that already is there, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are groups that are dedicated to making sure that young people are doing that. And I can send you the video from 2010, and you can see what they did. It's like little skits. They made it funny. So on the BPS front, right, you're from BPS, right? So I'm going to focus more, and I missed the earlier part, and I'm sorry, I was at an event with Empath, which is an economic mobility program. My question is, when we're thinking about financial literacy and we're looking at, well, I think we have 125 schools, are we looking at what age, elementary, middle school, high school? What's the point of entry for financial literacy?
So I represent the teaching and learning department. So we look at it as a K-12 trajectory. I introduced some of the K-2 learning that happens in regards to saving through some of our literacy that happens in the focus curriculum. There is also embedded in our IM math curriculum. There's in the second grade, third grade, seventh grade up to high school, instances of where students learn about saving, compound interest, making money decisions. That's embedded in our high quality instructional materials. We also talked about how at the high school level there's a little more interaction. Marcia talked about that. But we look at it in teaching and learning like it starts at our youngest learners, and then also how that connects to our Boston Saves program, and how I was saying that the books that they have that connect to that have that Boston Safe sticker, so the teachers can also reiterate that program that starts students and families off with a little something to be able to do that. But how we grow that program and seeing how we can make sure our youngest learners, and to your point, the families understand that financial literacy piece as well.
No, I love that, and I keep looking at the clock. I got 1 minute and 49 seconds, so I appreciate you trying to get me to the finish line here, because I'm happy that you talked about Boston Saves, because what it demonstrates to me is, I always say that we are resource rich but coordination poor, right? There's so many resources here in the city of Boston, but oftentimes we miss the mark when we're thinking about how we interact with all of these. So I'm happy to see that Boston Saves is part of your programming and at least the promotional materials. I recently learned, I have a 15-year-old daughter who she got Cash App, y'all. I don't know about you. And she wants to take Ubers everywhere, and I can't pick her up all the time. So I am feeling the financial crunch of being a single mom, and I've been trying to teach her some really good habits. And one of the things that I recently learned is that she can open up her own bank account at 14. I don't know if you knew, but there's a program that teenagers can have bank accounts. Are you familiar with?
I have a teenager, and I have 10-year-olds that have what's called a green lighter card. It's a debit account that they can open, and that they have access to not only the liquid funding, but they can also invest through it. They can have savings accounts. They can buy crypto if they want to. I don't have them do that, but
Senator Warren would not like you saying that right now. Yeah, take that back.
But my children have that type of account.
Wow. Okay, so not minus the crypto situation here, but I would love to see that in our Boston public schools, like that level of information, because I would like my daughter to have her own bank account so she can get off of my Cash App. And I also think if there's information that you can share with me, I'd love to, from parent to parent, please exchange that. I would appreciate it. And my time is up, unfortunately, so thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. We have a second panel, so if you do have more questions for this panel, I'd welcome them. I'll give the opportunity to Councilor Murphy first, and I can come back to you.
Yeah. No, I have no more questions for this panel. Thank you, though, and we'll continue. And looking forward to the answers for the questions we asked. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor Mejia, if you have
One more.
Absolutely, go ahead.
So, budget season is coming down the pipeline, and I always think that it's important for us to have a better understanding of what people need, because we have high expectations, y'all, and we expect you all to do everything with nothing, right? And that's unfair oftentimes. And I think that as we're talking about financial literacy, it would be helpful to me in my advocacy as we continue to navigate this process, what financial supports if any, do you need to be able to better execute against the high demands that we are making on you every single day as it relates to financial literacy and financial excellence for our Black and brown students in particular? You don't have to do a dollar amount, but like, do you need like, you know, financial planners that know how to talk to young people? Like, do you like, what does that look like?
I can just talk about like conversations I had with Chicago Public Schools in the
please.
past. They went from not having a graduation requirement to having a graduation requirement, and what that took was people power. They needed to develop a department, and those who were program directors who oversaw the education of financial literacy in regards to our teachers getting professional learning, in regards to overseeing it as a K-12 initiative. And they said to me that was one of the first steps that they needed, and they actually brought in folks who worked like with partnerships and actually managed those bank partnerships, managed those community partnerships, and how they went into schools and supported. And I think that's something that's important to make the work, a foundational piece to make that work solidified in our schools. I think that's something, yeah.
Thank you. And then to follow up on that, unless you have something like a wish list right here.
Yeah, I have one tiny little wish list. You know, within my role, financial literacy is usually aligned to issues of college affordability and higher ed financing. And one of the trends that we have seen over recent years is a decline in school-based, community-based agencies like you Aspire and others being able to deliver services because of cuts coming from you know where. So that is something that we would like to, build some advocacy around, is how can we reinstate some of these school-based services that students and school counselors and families depend on to help them through the micro steps of understanding, like the Massachusetts tuition equity laws, MASFA versus FAFSA, and really going through the application processes where students are benefiting from all the aid at both the state and federal level that are available to them.
Thank you, thank you. You don't have a wish list out?
No, I just want to underscore our gratitude to the Boston Chamber of Commerce Foundation, who've dedicated 2 staff people to this initiative, and that's an investment that they have made, and we wouldn't be where we are today without their support.
So kudos, y'all hear that? And the last thing that I'll just offer, we have a lot of institutions, higher ed institutions, BU, Northeastern, Harvard, who aren't paying their fair share of pilot. And there is a concept around universal basic income for families. I think that if there was, if I had my own little fairy godmother here, I probably would wish that every single Boston Public School student, similar to the Boston Saves, would get a little fund, but a monthly stipend, and that they can learn how to budget. And then they only get $100, but within that month, they have to prioritize the things that they can spend, because then you can really start developing a sense of kind of like what your spending habits are. So this would be something that, not that we have the money to do that, but I think that if young people had capital to work with, it could be a tool to teach them how to, even if it's $50 or even $25 at this point, or $5 if they're in the second grade. But I think if there was a way for us to incentivize young people with actual capital to work with, so that they can see the impact of the decisions that they're making, and maybe this is something that we can pilot with our summer youth employment programs. Like if we could give incentives to people who save $500 for that summer, then theirs could be a match. I think that really thinking outside the box in terms of financial literacy, but also providing it from a place of incentives, I think also helps young people really get into it. Like I think that savings is not sexy, right? Everybody wants to spend money as soon as they get it. I'm always at Burlington Coat Factory, y'all. That's why I always had 3 jobs, right? So I think that we just have to get into the habit of having a better relationship with money. And I think the best way for us to have financial literacy is to help people understand what that relationship could look like. And so I thank you all for your work. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Councilor Mejia. Again, I just want to thank our three panelists from BPS for being here, for answering our questions. I will now dismiss you all and now invite our second panel, our community panel. With us, we're going to have Stephen Whalen, who's the managing partner with City Real Estate Development. And then we have Nislo Galvo, who's the executive director of Early Investors. So I'll welcome them to come to the floor, and I'll give them the opportunity to introduce themselves and then share any remarks, opening statements, presentation, and we'll go to councilor questions. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. I'll turn the floor over to you all. And if you can just introduce yourselves for the record, and then give any opening remarks, presentation, and then we'll go to councilor questions. Thank you.
Is that working?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. I'm not much of a public speaker, but I'm going to do my best. First of all, I want to thank the council for inviting us here to speak on this very important topic. Special thank you to Councilor Murphy for, along the way, being there for guidance and support. My name is Steve Whalen. I am the founder of City Kids, which is a for-purpose entity created to give kids in the city of Boston educational opportunities and tools to spark intellectual curiosity. As it applies to, and I'd like to introduce my collaborator, Nislo Galvao of Early Investors, Inc. What got me on this topic was we do a robust internship every year. We gave out paychecks, it was 2-3 years ago, and one of the kids came up to me after and he said, "Can you pay me in cash?" And I was wondering, he was 18, why did he need to get paid in cash? Because it would save him money, he said. That got me thinking about financial literacy and the importance of financial literacy. So I started to talk to the kids. I started to listen to what they were saying about their understanding of where they were with financial literacy, and it was pretty stark. Most of them didn't have a bank account, which was one thing. So they were, they're open to predators out there, and a lot of them were about to go into college, so they were getting a lot of offers about financial support and get a free laptop on this or that. So they really had no financial armor. So went back and we talked to our team, said, we really want to get going on this. Our mantra became, after talking with too many kids that had similar kind of statements and experiences to the first kid I mentioned, was financial literacy right now is more important than algebra. That's a stark statement, but it's true. These kids are coming out into the world. Their credit is getting obliterated pretty quickly, and they're at a deficit before they even know it. So we decided we wanted to start picking it up as a project and see what we could do. And our goal in the beginning was to have pilot programs go into the schools and to eventually have BPS take it on as curriculum, financial literacy as curriculum, robust curriculum. So that led to a conversation with a lot of community partners to find the right partner, because we wanted to be with somebody that cared about this topic and really gave their all to the kids as we went out. So that's where I was introduced through Paula DeVeros of the Cape Verdean Association to Nislo. I met with Nislo a few times, and we asked him about his programming. We read his programming, and what really got me was his passion for this subject. He was passionate, as were we. So we decided to collaborate together to strategize on how we would get to our goal. Over the last 2 years, we've done approximately 300 workshops in various schools and organizations revolving around financial literacy and getting kids on better footing. I can say that going into the schools was even more eye-opening because we were seeing a lot of kids respond to surveys where, hey, how are you going to build wealth? Our survey said 56% of them said, we're going to win the lottery, closely followed by I'm going to be a professional sports player or a musician. Those are your top three. So although those are great aspirations, other than the lottery, the likelihood of that happening is very low. So we have to give these kids a dose of reality and fallback options. Another fact was 93% of them said their families were in financial distress. So that's a big chunk of the families. Another fact was 80% of them said they used check cashing as opposed to going through the regular banking system. These facts really underlined, that our mission was important. So with that said, and Nislo, who has been fighting this fight for several years, he can go more into the detail and the experience within schools and organizations. So I'll pass it to you.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Councilman Santana and Councilwoman Murphy for this opportunity. Truly appreciate it. I will say this much before I start with my prepared statement. 70,000 kids. That's how many kids graduate high school each and every year here in Massachusetts without this basic life skill. 70,000. We'd rather teach kids about math, English, science, social studies. You have foreign language, that is a requirement. You have even arts. And in some schools, or most schools I should say, every single student learned about drugs and sex, but they're not learning about personal finance. What is that saying about us? It's not a priority. So we applaud your efforts today. Hopefully we can make some huge strides in mandating high school seniors to take a money management course before they graduate. With that being said, Early Investors, we are a not-for-profit 501c3 organization. As Steve mentioned, we are committed to inspire and enrich lives through financial empowerment of young adults as well as adults alike, because financial education spans all age groups. It's not specific to one group. Our goal is to instill in those who participate in our program the importance of financial education, asset building, and wealth management. The hope is that this will better position them to lead financially secure lives, realize their personal aspirations, and contribute to the growth and development of their communities. So since 2010, Early Investors has partnered with local high schools, financial service institutions, organizations, and other stakeholders like City Kids to deliver our specialized economic-infused and personal finance-based curriculum. Unlike other organizations, we go about it directly. We go directly to young adults at schools, at community-based organizations, as well as their places of work. So to give you an idea as far as the different schools that we have partnered with in the past, Boston Latin School, Boston Latin Academy, Boston Prep Academy. We did programming at Milton High School, Somerville High School, Hingham High School, Codman Academy, Community Academy of Science and Health, Fenway High, John D. O'Brien, Charlestown High, Somerville High School, Boston Community Leadership Academy, New Mission High School, the Engineering School, which no longer exists, Greater Eggleston, English High. We've done programming at Millis High School, Holliston High School, also organizations like Step to Success in Brookline, Kwang Khao Chinese School in Chinatown, Tech Boston Academy, Suffolk County House of Corrections, Catholic Charities, Archdiocese of Boston, Bikes Not Bombs, Harlem Lacrosse. And in addition to that, I wish the Councilwoman who's asked about summer programming, especially as it relates to the Mayor Jobs Program. We've also partnered up with a lot of these financial institutions that have given internship internship opportunities to these young people. So we've partnered up with Blue Cross Blue Shield, Brigham and Women's Hospital, Dana-Farber, Liberty Mutual, More Than Words, DTCC, as well as some other. And as I mentioned before, we actually designed and delivered a program to Suffolk County House of Corrections as well as Pondville. So we are very active. We are boots on the ground. And I will say, out of certainty, that we were probably the only organization on the ground that's offering comprehensive financial education to young people. As I mentioned before, we're not waiting for the other shoe to drop. 70,000 kids graduate high school without this basic life skill. We can't wait no longer. So having organizations like Early Investors that are targeting these kids directly at schools and community-based organizations, as well as their places of work, is essential. Thanks to the collaboration with City Kids, we're able to do that. In addition to some of those schools that I mentioned, Brighton High was a program that Steve and City Kids were able to sponsor. As I mentioned, Somerville High School, the Cape Verdean Association, Boston Asian Youth Enrichment Services, Boston Center for Youth and Families. We also delivered a program to them, as well as MECO, as well as Mothers for Justice and Equality. And more recently, thanks to Steve and City Kids, we were able to deliver a 20-week program to students at Holland High School this past school year. Some of the numbers Steve alluded to, 82% had little to no savings. 56% obviously stated that winning the lottery was the most practical strategy to accumulate wealth. 91% said that they had family problems. 64% of them never had a checking and savings account. And 89% had no idea what investing truly meant. Some of the program successes, 94% of participants applied skills learned to their own situation immediately. A lot of these kids do have jobs. And unfortunately, a lot of them still receive paper checks. So by going into schools, we talk to them about the importance of banking. It's not just debit cards and checking accounts. It's more than that. It's developing maybe getting a CD account or a money market account. 82% of the kids said that they would open up a saving/investment account within the next 6 months. And it's important to note that Early Investors, we don't do this ourselves. We enlist corporate America to help us out. So we partner up with a lot of major financial institutions like the Audux Private Equity, BlackRock, Capstone, and others to help deliver our program. And that's the reason why we're able to deliver a comprehensive program as opposed to just a one workshop. On average, our workshops are about 9 to 11 weeks. And as I mentioned before, thanks to Steve, we were able to do a 20-week program at Holland High School. Some of the other success, 97% stated that they had a positive impact. The program had a positive impact on their views and approach, not only on money, but just life in general. And then 71 graduated from our program with a grade of 82% or better. The course, it's a comprehensive course. There's case studies, there's homework assignments, there's projects. Thanks to, and Councilman Flynn, you mentioned OEE, a division of the Mass Treasurer's Office. Thanks to them, we've been able to deliver Credit for Life or / reality fairs to schools across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We enlist about 20 to 30 partners. It's a reality fair. There's 20 booths. We provide kids with a budget. They have to research their desired occupation, calculate what the monthly net income is, obviously after taxes, and then they go to each and every booth deducting that amount. Suffice to say, 90%, if not more, of students find themselves in a predicament where they were over budget. So part of the exercise, they have to go back and reassess. So those are just some of the successes that we as an organization have seen. And I'm willing to take any questions that you may have.
Awesome. Thank you both. Really appreciate you both being here. I'm going to go to councilor questions, starting with the lead sponsor. Councilor Flynn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Steve and to Nislo for your testimony. I do apologize that I did step out for a few minutes. But let me ask you one question. Can you just explain, and I always was involved as a probation officer with reentry, but can you explain the program you had at the Suffolk County Jail in supporting people in custody?
Yes, great question. So we partnered with Suffolk County House of Corrections. I believe it was back in 2013, 2014. They didn't have financial education whatsoever. They had several education programs in place, but financial education was one of the biggest issues. And one of the issues or concerns that we had that we presented them with is a lot of these inmates and detainees, one of the main problems why they're incarcerated is because of money problems. Mm-hmm. So why not have a financial education program? And Jim DeZio, who was head of the program, education program at that time, was very receptive. So receptive that he asked as far as, could you design a program for us? And that's exactly what we did. We designed a program that not only discussed goal setting and financial planning and budgeting and payroll taxes, but as far as how could they re-enter the world, especially with core checks and things of that nature. So that program was very comprehensive, but we were there for about a year and a half. We saw both inmates and detainees, both the men population as well as the female population. And that program ran for about a year and a half. And unfortunately, because of COVID, as well as some other factors, we were unable to restart the program, but we're looking to do that in the near future.
Yeah, that's something I would support. I think it's critical. Financial literacy, you certainly need to learn it at a very young age in our BPS schools, but if you didn't learn it, there's also an opportunity to learn it as an adult, especially as an adult. You need to have an understanding of financial literacy. Just because you might be in custody doesn't mean you don't need financial literacy. You probably need it a lot more. But setting people up for success as they leave jail or leave custody, because probably their banking system or may have been cut off, or some of their support systems might have been cut off during that time. But do many of the inmates or those in custody, do they have access to start a bank account while they're in custody?
As I know, no.
Okay.
That's not in place.
Okay. So the challenge really is once they get out is then, we were talking about this the other day, then they need to get a birth certificate, then an identification, and then eventually getting into the banking system so you can establish a credit savings or a credit account. But that could take you a month or months after you get out. But supporting someone while they're in and getting those types of life skills is critical, because I've seen it when I was on active duty, as I mentioned. I lived in Cuba for 13 months, and I taught a lot of these courses for younger people mostly, and they were 19, 20 years old, and they would buy, the first thing they did was they'd buy a car in Florida, and then they'd get deployed to Cuba, and they'd be paying huge money for a car in Florida, and now they're in Cuba, and they were asking me how do I go about figuring that out, and they're paying about $1,000 for their car, knowing that they're being deployed for 13 months. But not to criticize them, but they just never had the basic financial assistance or background as a younger person. So that's why it's so important what you're doing. I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you for what you're doing and to continue the positive work you're doing in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Councilor Murphy, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony and for bringing that sense of urgency that I did not hear in the first panel. I appreciate they were here, but unfortunately, oftentimes in BPS, one of my biggest frustrations is it seems like it's just a box we have to check, and it wasn't a a gotcha, but when we try to say, well, everyone has an opportunity through MyCap to maybe be exposed if their school can, offer it, but it's not the same as what we're talking about here, that it's real education, it's needed. It's not even just one class. It could be, like you said, what was it, Hollister, a 20-week course, 10 weeks, where they're really getting into understanding. And I liked your word, Steve, financial armor, right? Like, you need it and you need it as soon as you start getting paid. And young kids now, it's great. I know they're babysitting. You can Venmo now, so young kids have Venmo. And where do you put that money? Where does it sit? What do you do with it? How do you help it grow? Because money is freedom, right? And you can't live without it. Nobody can live without money. So you're going to have to find some relationship with it. And those surveys, I'm not surprised, right? Many people have a bad relationship with money because they saw their families either resentful or struggling with it. So how do we work through, and I know your courses do that, right? It's a deep conversation. You have to get through the emotional attachment people have with money. Some people love it, some people hate it. You can't live without it though. So how do we get our kids to a place where, they all have this understanding so that they don't feel as though they're inadequate? Because I do see many kids just not knowing. And I've had many, I was just saying to the chair earlier that several of my summer interns, they can't set up direct deposit because they don't have a bank account. It's like the first week, I'm like, why is Lorraine needing to give you a paper check? I'm like, oh, we need to go to the bank. We need to set up an account. Like these things that sometimes we take for granted. And I do also, if you gave surveys to adults, you'd probably have pretty close to the same statistics, right? So to expect our teachers or, the adults, they're probably coming with the same financial deficit that our students have. So how do we break that cycle? And how do we make it so that the opportunities that some, you listed a long list, but as you said, 70,000 kids every year are graduating. So although it's an impressive list that you work with, it's a small percentage. But Steve, I know, I've been to say the base, and you walk in, and all of those things that some, not many, but some kids take for granted, like healthy snacks, adult supervision, financial literacy classes. Could you just talk through what a student, say at East Boston High, gets to experience if they're in a financial class or one of the schools you listed that you are offering more than just kind of a one afternoon drop-in? Yeah.
So it's so important to implement all facets of personal finance, right? One thing that people don't stress about, obviously financial education is not just a buzzword, right? It's about crafting a financial life that supports goals and aspirations. What does that entail? It's not just balance in the checkbook. It's not just about credit. It's not just about banking. So we take a really holistic approach when it comes to personal finance. First and foremost, you have to build rapport with these kids. And you'll be surprised, once you build rapport with these kids, they tell you everything. Once you have that understanding, and we're talking about the landscape of Boston Public Schools students, most of them receive free or reduced lunch, breakfast, right? And yet, why do most of these students leave campus every single day to go out to Burger King or the local pizza joint? Why? All these kids understand the importance of personal finance, but just by going into the school and educating them on certain aspects doesn't change their mindset. So you first need to target their perception, their attitude. Once you do that, then you could change their actions. So our whole approach is that holistic approach. Let's talk about financial planning. Let's talk about goal setting. Let's talk about budgeting. Let's talk about payroll taxes. A lot of students do work, but given the fact that they don't make enough money, they're exempt from paying state and federal. Yet all students don't even bother reading contracts. That's another aspect of personal finance as well. Then you could get into credit. Then you could get into savings versus debt. We even talk about marketing gimmicks, right? So
that's huge, right? People like Council Flynn has mentioned car payments, and many times I hear kids then get hit with their insurance bill and kind of completely forgot that that would also be added to your monthly expense if you own a car or the, expense of gas.
Correct. So we've done program to continue with that conversation. We did a program, thanks to Steve and City Kids, at MECO. And we're going through financial planning, goal setting, budgeting, and everything. And the kid pulls me aside afterwards and says, Nislo, this is great. How can I invest? Right? 16-year-old kid. Well, you could use your parents, serve as a custodial individual, and then they could open up an investment account. But this particular individual stated that he's from a single-parent household. His mother is struggling to pay, make ends meet. How can he help? Which is very honorable. And we're going through the process. But when you look at the kid, he has a $400 pair of sneakers. He has $200 pair of Beats by Dre, right? So we could educate them all you want. Doesn't mean that it's going to, hit them to the point where they're going to make changes. So it's that interaction with the kids. So at all of our schools, it's so important to build that rapport, that trust with the students. And then going through as far as we're not professorial, we're having a conversation with students. It's not lectures. And everyone that we bring to the forefront, including the private and public sector, they understand that. So we all have an obligation to educate these young kids. It's all about how we go about doing it. And we do it from from a point where kids could access the information. It's at their speed. We bring real life into the classroom. It's not just based on theories and formulas or whatever it may be. So that's what we do in the classroom. That's the reason why it's a comprehensive program.
One last,
Yes.
one of the buzzwords you hear all the time is like intergenerational wealth. It's real, it's important. Do you ever teach that also?
I would say getting kids from the mindset of survival to thriving, that there is a path to get there. I mean, survival is, you should know the basics. Thriving is, you start to have resources to ask questions. So we like to be there and to provide a Rolodex to these kids so they can ask the questions if they're interested in investing. We can talk to them about that. We offer, we're real estate people, so we've got a program where we offer scholarships to go through the real estate course. So they can, we don't really care if they become a real estate agent at the end. I mean, if they like the business, it's great, but just the financial education they get along the way is very important. There's a lot of these kids, they're in rental housing and they don't know how this owner got to a place where they were able to buy that. So it's so rewarding if you're able to, if a kid has an interest in a certain subject, you can put them together with the right party. I think having interesting business cohorts go to these programs is very important because that gets kids to show up. Nislo's program is, some of the stuff that I would think was super boring, like looking at a check and seeing what is FICA and what are all these. Kids were fascinated by it, So it's so important, and there is a thirst for that knowledge, and they do see after going to a reality fair, which is basically they get some money and they go around and they have choices where you want to live, what you want to buy. It's very eye-opening at the end. You mentioned $60,000 not being a lot of money after you chop it up. They see it in quote unquote reality.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Council President Eugene, you have the floor.
Thank you. This conversation, thank you so much for being here. This conversation always triggers so much in terms of thinking about how wealth is created, who has it and who doesn't. It's really hard to divorce from financial literacy the idea of systemic barriers to wealth creation, systemic barriers to home ownership that have led to certain communities having and not having. But I do, as one of those kids that took my paycheck from the check cashers, And then we went to Galleria Mall in Cambridgeside and bought our Jordans and all of that. So I think this is not to say that the financial literacy, it's really important for that to happen. But I also think that there's a connected justice component that I think is also important. When I think about this conversation, I often think about people who grew up without any resources, who are trying to make money quickly and therefore may get involved in activities where it feels like you can make a quick buck, whether it's like drug dealing or illegal activity that then gets you into the carceral system and all these things. And I often am thinking about if kids understood, or if the same people often understood the compounding effects of money, that would be the strategy, right? Like that, instead of turning to like illicit activity, if you understood like that you can make your own money make money, that is an avenue for wealth building. And I'm wondering if you found that to be like an effective way when you're talking to people, especially our young Black and brown kids, about wealth building and wealth creation. Like, here's another way of, it's not as quick, but maybe the guaranteed way of like what it looks like to invest your money in an IRA or a Roth IRA and to see steady returns over time. Wondering if those are conversations that you've had, and have you seen sort of like light bulbs turn on when you have that conversation?
No, that's
Sorry, it's just like a bunch of jumbled thoughts I've had in my head for some time, but.
I think that's a great question because of the fact that first and foremost, you need to understand who your demographic is, right? You can't just have a cookie cutter approach when it comes to personal finance. So for a lot of our students, for a lot of our demographic, Steve mentioned it before, that their idea of wealth is what they see on TV. What their favorite musician, athlete, entertainer is doing. So we talk about all these celebrities that have experienced financial problems and where they are right now. So when they're watching TV and they're seeing their famous musician, they don't necessarily look at the financial woes that they experience. And then we talk about, as far as for instance, Kanye West or even Britney Spears or Johnny Depp or Nicolas Cage, they've all experienced financial issues. Then we talk about the other side, these individuals with high net worth individuals. So we'll put up a picture of Jeff Bezos. We'll put a picture of Elon Musk. We'll put a picture of Larry Ellison. We'll put up a picture of Bill Gates. And we'll actually have the students look at how they're able to build wealth. And you also analyze, as far as when it comes to your particular goals, what do you guys want to accomplish in life? And obviously, they internalize what they see on a regular basis, right? But when you really get through the crux of it, what are they trying to accomplish in life? You'll find out, as far as a lot of them have some honorable goals. They want to help their family. They want a path to home ownership. Well, how best are you going to do that? You could do it working 9 to 5 every single day. You could do it doing some illicit activities. But what's going to happen in the long run? So we'll actually pull up, shortly after, we'll pull up a compound interest calculator. And we'll tell them, as far as an investment of $500 at a rate of 7% would yield so much in 30 years, 20 years. That's how you accumulate wealth. And
that's been successful?
Yes.
Like
that's for a lot of schools, especially the inner cities, that's what we lead with. That's how we're able to get them to really grasp what we're trying to do. Because with that focus in mind, it's a lot easier to sell them on everything else, especially at banking and credit, and some of those other things that are not necessarily as interesting, like taxes. But with that in mind, when we have them, keep their goals and aspirations on the desk throughout the entire process, whether it's 9 weeks, 11 weeks, and cut off the noise to everything else, right? So when they're watching TV or what have you, that is inhibiting them from achieving their ultimate goal. So that's a strategy that we use quite often.
I think to follow up, delayed gratification, getting an understanding that to put things off a bit, not not just buy things immediately, is important. A lot of the kids that we've talked to, family. They mentioned family. I want to bring this knowledge back to my family, because we have a lot of recently immigrated kids, and that sometimes their parents don't speak English, so they're learning everything, and then kind of helping guide their parents through. So if we get financial literacy in school, that's not only just going to affect these kids, it's going to affect the whole family. And it's got to be consistent, over time. So we have some kids that have started to make some money. So then the conversation comes up: do I buy the new Mustang, just because I can? But again, it goes back to you have, for building wealth, you have to delay your gratification, and you have to keep an eye on your goal, which is to create a base so you're not going week to week on a paycheck, and if that paycheck disappears, you're in serious financial difficulty. So it takes consistency. So that's why these longer programs give a chance first of all for the kids to open up and talk about it, because it's a taboo subject. Some of the kids, maybe they had financial difficulty within the family, and maybe their Social Security was used to open up an account or whatever, so they're already like kind of not feeling great about it, and kind of avoiding the subject. So the conversation is very important to get them to open up.
Well, thank you for the work that you're doing to disrupt sort of how our young people talk about money, which is often taboo. I'll say that for myself. Growing up, it's not a conversation that was really had. I'd love to see how we can scale so that more students can have exposure, because I think it's really important. So thank you. I also want to thank Aldo Witherspoon at the Get Lit program. They started a financial literacy component. They had their an event, their gala this week. So I just want to uplift and thank everyone who's working to sort of ensure that our young kids have financial literacy and are able to learn more about money. So thank you for joining us this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the sponsors. And thank you to everyone who's working on this issue.
Awesome. Thank you, Council President. Next up, we have Councilor Mejia.
Thank you. Aside from financial literacy, they should also teach young people etiquette on how to show up in this world, right? Because I would have benefited from those classes too. So, well, let me talk a little bit about money. And I'm glad that you mentioned real estate. There was a Alex E. Edwards, not sure if you're familiar with Alex E. Edwards. He bought his first house while he was still in high school, and he ended up having to foreclose it. But that experience really taught him a lot about wealth building, and now he does a lot of development across the city of Boston, and also has been teaching young people how to flip bricks, if you will, to get into home ownership as pathways out of poverty, right? So if you haven't heard of him, you should check him out and figure out how you all can co-conspire together, because I do believe there's some really good energy there with each other. So Alex E. Edwards, I have his phone number. I can put you afterwards, okay? I'm a network weaver. I like to make things happen. So I love to see when people are doing really good things and connecting. So happy to do that. And I really do appreciate the story that you mentioned about the young person who wanted to help their mom, but then they were rocking $400 pair of sneakers. Because when I was 12 years old, everybody had Nikes except me. And I ended up going to an insurance agency that had just moved to my neighborhood. And I was like, I know everybody around here. Do a flyer, and I'll help you promote it. All I wanted was a pair of Nikes, okay? That was my number one priority. I wanted to be in. Mind you, we were poor, so my mom was not happy with my decision-making skills. But I only made $26. This was a long time ago. $26 was probably like maybe $70 today. But it was such a pivotal moment in my life. I was 12. But the power of really being able to have my own money and to work for it, even if that was just the only goal, I think is a lesson, as I hear you all talking about, is really changing young people's perception about what an investment looks like and what that return on that investment, how it can multiply if you are thinking about just beyond the immediate satisfaction that you get from rocking a pair of sneakers. So I say all of this because I'm curious, how are you grappling with that dynamic, the need to have the best fit and look good and not get bullied at school, because you know what that looks like, right? While also trying to balance the fact that there is an opportunity for you to be financially mature. How are you grappling with that right now, especially in this culture?
How we address that issue, which, thank you so much, is something, especially when it comes to this young demographic, that's the way they think. We talk a lot when we talk about marketing gimmicks, right? As far as what Fifth Avenue wants you to purchase. They're telling you what you want, not necessarily what you need. The problem with a lot of young people and even adults, we live for other people. Most of the decisions that we make is not necessarily because we want to make that, it's because of the fact that we want to fit in.
That's right.
And when you have that mindset, bankrupt is in your future. And we tell kids that a lot of adults, and even some young people, they know the game of Monopoly. Whereas everyone else is playing Monopoly, they're just given in to that mindset. They need to flip the script. They need to incorporate the game of Monopoly into their own life. And it's all about building wealth so that you have the option, you have the peace of mind, you have the flexibility to do as you please. But when you listen to other people, and adults are guilty of this as well, is that you're not going to achieve any of your goals. And let's be blunt. So when you go out there and you purchase that $300, $400 pair of sneakers, or winter is upon us and you want that triple goose jacket that's cost $1,000, what are you really doing to your future? So it's having those conversations with the students where it's probably not conventional, to say the least, but it's something that they need to hear. And everyone's goals are pretty much the same when you think about it. They want option, they want stability, they want peace of mind. So how do you go about achieving those goals? $300 pair of sneakers is not going to have you achieve those goals whatsoever. If you're saying early on, especially when we have them do a financial plan or write down what their goals are, what conflicts with those goals? $300, we could teach you how to make that into $1,000. So we'll actually go through the process of building that wealth so that you could achieve those goals within the time frame that you want to achieve. I'm sorry.
I think home ownership is a big way to build wealth. So we're always driving kids, once they start to make money in whatever career they have, don't buy the car. You know, suffer on the car. Your focus is to get yourself into a house because that's going to be a great investment. You'll be in there, it'll have a roof over your head and you'll be in the market and you'll start to build wealth. As far as get rich quick, I mean, it's everywhere. I had to talk to a kid about, there was some YouTube channel or Instagram channel where give me $1,000 and I'll teach you how to, flip a house or flip land all over the country. I was like, it's not that easy. Nothing's ever that easy. Just keep focusing on what you're doing. It may not be as quick or as sexy, but you just focus on what you have. But it's hard to bring those kids back down because they're trying to get ahead. They're chomping at the bit to get ahead, but they have to be smart. That's why having good mentors around them is very important, I think.
And I know my time went away. Could I say one more thing, Chair?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I want to quickly affirm, you had mentioned something about rappers and television and all that. So I worked at MTV for 10 years. And I can tell you that the marketing strategy is that they would study hip-hop culture, right? They would package it, and then they would sell it right back to the kids who were the ones who created it, but then they became the consumers of it, right? And so I think that there is something to be said about how we can also help young people understand how they they already have everything that they need, and that they could be making that money instead of being sold a vision. So I hear you. I've seen it, and I know how they do it, and that's why our young people, that's why we're all where we are. It's not just young people. We all are products of media and marketing, and so I think that is ingrained a little bit in all of us. So thank you. Thank you for all your work. Really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. Do any of my colleagues want to do a second round for this? Do you have? Yep, Councilor Flynn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be brief. I just want to ask Steve a quick question or comment, and again, thank you for your important work you both are doing. Steve, one of the points I listened to you and that really resonated is, as part of financial literacy, having good mentors. And we talked about, young people, maybe investing in housing, maybe not. But for a young person to invest in housing at an early age probably doesn't sound like the best opportunity for them. But you are right. If you had good mentors that you trust and you respect, an older person, a teacher, maybe they could give you good, sound advice, financial advice, and lead you on a path to, financial success instead of trying these different programs to get rich. But that's also part of financial literacy as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a big part because the mentors have already made the mistakes, so we can kind of, from experience, give guidance along the way to the kids. No, don't do that. That's not the path. The home ownership goal is a lofty goal, but it's a star on the horizon, and if you're headed towards it, that means you have to do all the other things. You have to have a job that you're passionate about, that you like. You have to have some budgeting put in place, so you're getting to a place where that. And there's so much educational material out there and programs out there that can help you along the way, that you have to become a student of business and of finance. And a lot of kids really lean into that. And some of them get a little bit of it, or you may not think they got anything. So you have, Nisa and I were talking before this, and he was approached by a student, maybe he had him 5 years ago. You want to talk about that?
Yes. So in the past, or even recently, we partner with a lot of institutions that hire high school teenagers for their internship program. It's usually a 7-week program. And there's one student in particular who is now a teacher or a instructor at Holland High School, took our course when he was just 14, 15 years old. This was through Blue Cross Blue Shield. And Blue Cross Blue Shield, part of their internship, they had to take our program. They had to take our course. And the student turned and said, you don't recognize me. This was just several weeks ago. And I said, I'm sorry, I do not. He's like, but I took your program when I was a student, way back when, but through Blue Cross Blue Shield. At the time, I didn't really take in a lot of the lessons that you taught me, but moving forward, or fast forward to now, it's really coming to fruition. So sometimes you don't see the fruit of your labor right away. It disguises itself, but then reappears in the future. So sometimes you see students, the wheels are turning right away. Some students will apply what they learned right immediately. However, some students, not so much. It may take some time, but that was the lesson that we kind of took in that day.
And that underlines that, even if there's a little bit of listening, then it's worthwhile, It clicks at some point.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you for your testimony, but even more importantly, for what you're doing in the community. Thank you. And Mr. Chair, I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Councilor Mayor, did you have? Okay. All right. And we do have Zoom, okay. Well, I want to thank our panelists. Thank you so much for being here, for answering our questions. We're not going to want to dismiss you both. We do have one person who wants to testify via Zoom for public testimony. So we will go ahead and pull that.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
When your name is called, please come. What's via Zoom? So, for those testifying on Zoom, please accept the message asking you to be prompted to panelists when it appears. And with us, we have the famous Alda Witherspoon. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm famous? Oh my gosh. Good afternoon, Councilor Henry Santana, Education Chair, and members, Councilor Murphy and Councilor Flynn. It's great to see you today with a focus on literacy, as many of us have worked together and taken part in our Get Lit programs. As founder and CEO of the Witherspoon Institute, also known by our acronym WIN, we recently celebrated our 19th anniversary gala and awards at our partner site at the Boston Public Library, recently renamed the Shaw Roxbury branch, where we honored 41 stellar Bostonians and national partners, including Bishop Mitchell G. Taylor of New York, who created Urban Upbound over 30 years ago to teach financial literacy to families in the housing project, with bill paying, taxes, and budgeting to grow into owning their own credit union with 2 branches. The Witherspoon Institute gave the bishop our National Financial Literacy Lifetime Achievement Award. Over the past 3 years, our post-COVID learning crisis initiative, WIN, has been looking at and surrounding ourselves with local and national leaders and models to fortify our youth in Boston, as we are engaging the best in the business to assist us in our WIN financial literacy model begun last year, in addition to our Get Lit reading program in collaboration with public libraries and after-school book programs such as the No Books, No Ball by community leader Tony Richards. And I'm proud to say many of you council members, I know Ruth Z and also Julia was at our award ceremony last night, but also all of your esteemed education panels have also worked with us with Get Lit. And I just supremely want to thank you for the work you have been doing in the community. It does really make a difference when the children see you, they get to interview you, they get to learn more about what you do, and aspiring to be leaders in their own right. You are a prime example of leadership that are touching the lives of young people. So I just wanted to thank you for the work you've been doing with us, and of course for your panel discussion today. I stand before you with urgent conviction around financial literacy, because it must be a cornerstone in Boston Public Schools if we are to equip our youth for a future that demands economic independence and community leadership. For nearly 2 decades, WIN has been a beacon of transformation in education with our flagship Get Lit book band literacy program, uniquely blending reading and financial empowerment through our innovative Get Lit, Get Fit initiative in collaboration with Cambridge Savings Bank and community partners such as the East Boston Salesian Boys and Girls Club, South Boston Neighborhood House, Madison Park High School, and Catholic Charities in Dorchester at their teen center at St. Peter's. We provide young people not just with knowledge, but with the practical skills and confidence to navigate personal finance and entrepreneurship. Embedding financial literacy into our schools is not merely an educational imperative, it is a moral obligation to ignite enduring opportunities and leadership in every child across the city. As you may know, post-COVID, World Bank did a study that said $17 trillion would be lost to our young people in this post-COVID era, because the slippage in the schools will bring about lost wages because they won't be able to compete on the world stage. At WIN, we have seen firsthand that education is the spark that ignites leadership and transforms us, the futures of our children. Together, let's commit to lighting the path towards economic equity and generational change for Boston's next leaders. Central to this mission is our 3rd annual Get Lit Thanksgiving Cook-Off on Saturday, November 15th 2025 at Florian Hall in Dorchester. It's a spirited culinary showdown between the Boston Police and Fire Departments to raise awareness about Get Lit literacy and financial literacy games. Beyond the financial competition and the irresistible aroma of the creative dishes that lies a powerful story woven beneath every Win Kid Royal Cupcake in a 10-week journey through our Get Lit, Get Fit financial literacy program developed with Cambridge Savings Bank, local bakers, and the Age Strong Seniors program. This program is far more than lessons. It is an intergenerational beacon, equipping our young with the confidence, savvy, and entrepreneurial skills needed to navigate today's financial challenges. While Girl Scouts sell cookies, our Win Kids proudly sell Royal Cupcakes, sweet symbols of creativity, resilience, and empowerment, where we teach our children to be a boss, to act like a boss, walk like a boss, talk like a boss, and be a boss in their business, as taught through our live action money game called Wink. It's a smart money game where kids learn to overcome business obstacles by utilizing SMART goals: strategic, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound measures to succeed. To coin the rapper DJ Quirk, if it don't make money, it don't make sense. Monthly, our Get Lit program brings together reader leaders from all walks of life, corporate, political, educational, and media, to fan the flames of curiosity, critical thinking, and community engagement among our youth. Get Lit isn't just a program, it's a movement, a rallying cry demanding educational justice and opportunity. Now more than ever, we must unite to illuminate a future where every child light shines brightly, igniting minds, transforming futures, and elevating communities. Please join us, one page, one cupcake, one conversation at a time, to fuel this unstoppable wave. And I leave you with our motto, which says, ignite your light, read right, get lit.
Thank you so much, Alda. Really appreciate you being here with us and providing your testimony, and for all the work that you do on behalf of our community. Great. Well, I just really want to thank again all of our panelists, all the people who came today. Thanks to my council colleagues, and special thanks to the lead sponsors for bringing this conversation. I thought it was extremely informative and insightful, and really appreciate that. So with that, this hearing docket on number 0318 is adjourned. Thank you.